Number 5. An officer gets a call to a residence for a mental evaluation. He is greeted at the door by a 50-year-old woman who is claiming her 20-year-old son is under the influence of an unknown drug. In the background, he can hear the son muttering, "I can't go in my bedroom, there's an old man hanging in there," over and over again. The mother says she was too scared to go into the bedroom and investigate herself because her son always brings home drug addicts who stay in his room and she is afraid of them. The officer then went and spoke to the son and noticed he was clearly under the influence of some sort of stimulant. The son then went on and told the officer that a spirit told him not to enter the bedroom because the spirit's father was hanging in the bedroom dressed in a military uniform. The officer checked the room and there was no one in there. He then went to explain to the mother that there was no one in the room, and an older officer pulled him to one side and explained to him that he responded to a suicide at the same residence at early stages of his career when it was owned by different people. He said the suicide was a hanging of an older male. He didn't remember much of the details, so the officer looked it up on his report management system in his patrol car, and the older officer was right. It came up that the person that hung himself was an old man who dressed in his World War II uniform and then hung himself in the bedroom. Could the information have been disclosed to them when they purchased the house and it was playing on the son's drug-induced mind? Or could he have actually heard his spirit speak to him? I guess we'll never know. Number 4. The year is 1998. Police get information that a missing boy is living in an abandoned hospital, so they go there to investigate. 4 police officers enter the creepy hospital which had no electricity. They first search the cafeteria and find more than 100 jars stacked from floor to ceiling, all filled with urine. So they check with dispatch and find out that a crazy man had also been living there. Now all the officers were really creeped out and on edge. They made their way through the wards, checking every room. The rooms contained decayed furniture and hospital equipment. The nursery still had incubators and baby beds. The officers cleared all 4 top floors and then made their way into the basement which contained the morgue. Flashlights in hand, the officers searched the basement. It was empty except for one metal bed. As they approached the morgue, their flashlights became dim and one of the officers' flashlights went out completely. Now they are in the morgue in almost complete darkness, so they get worried and start to make their way back. But the morgue doors locked on their own. They tried to force it open but it wouldn't budge. They begin to panic and run towards the other side of the morgue where the other exit is. They said the smell of death was in the air, and right next to the exit they found a dead body. The body was of the crazy man. He had fallen down an elevator shaft which was right next to the exit. The kid that they was looking for was found at his girlfriend's house and was safe. Do you think the morgue was haunted? Can you explain what happened? Let me know in the comments. Number 3. In Illinois, 2 officers working a night shift were called out to investigate a suspected break-in at a morgue. They arrived at the morgue to find the janitor waiting for them outside. The janitor said he was mopping up one of the hallways and he had seen something move in the corner of his eye. He looked at it and saw a person quickly move from one side of the hallway to another. He couldn't tell much about the person as he had been turning off the lights as he worked his way through the building. He told officers he had just saw a dim outline, so he called the police. The 2 officers then entered the morgue and called out for anyone there to show themselves, but they got no answer. They then split up and began to look through the morgue, checking every room and occasionally calling out again. An officer then heard his partner call out, "Stop! Turn around!" He ran over to his partner and saw his partner pointing a gun down a corridor. He then said she went that way. They worked their way down the corridor checking every room, but they was all empty. They then came to a corner which had one separate room by itself, and as they turned the corner they saw her standing there. They couldn't really make her out but noticed that she was thin and had very long hair. She then ran into the room and a door shut on its own behind her. They went to the door and tried to open it but it was locked, so they got their janitor to unlock the door. They then turned the light on but there was no woman in the room, just a white sheet with an outline like a body. So they removed the sheet and there was a female dead body with long hair. The toe tag said that she had died 4 days earlier. Number 2. Police officers get a domestic call to a housing complex in a very bad neighbourhood because neighbours reported loud screaming and banging. 4 officers arrive on scene and go to the apartment. A Mexican woman answers and lets them in and begins to explain that one of her male family members had been acting strange for weeks and then started screaming at them that he was going to eat them and that he had been dragged back to hell because he had broken the agreement, and then started begging for the Virgin Mary to save him. His family tried to restrain him but he was too strong. Then he started foaming at the mouth and started screaming in an unknown language. The family believed he was possessed and put him in the bedroom. The officers made their way through the apartment. In the kitchen there was an elderly woman clutching candles and a photo of Mary, and there was children huddled in a corner terrified and shaking. The officers could hear the man screaming gibberish from the bedroom. It was so loud that it was shaking the walls. They approached the bedroom and could hear several voices shouting very loudly. They attempted to open a door but it wouldn't move, so they broke it down. The man was in the room alone, and they claim he was clinging onto the ceiling but then dropped after they entered the room. One of the paramedics in the room asked the man how he is feeling, and the man replied in very faint Spanish, "God himself will not recognize you when I am done with you." The man then began to claw at his face and blood began to pour out and drench the man's chest. The police then managed to restrain him, and one of the paramedics begins to look for a place to inject him to sedate him. The man stopped struggling, then done a deep laugh and said, "Look closely so you don't forget." They then sedated him and took him to hospital. Could the man have actually been possessed, or could he have just taken some type of drug? What do you think? Number 1. It's a cold, dark, wintry night. The clock hits 3 AM and a 911 dispatcher gets a call. She answers and asks what's your emergency. A man starts frantically screaming, claiming that his sister was possessed by a demon and tried to cut his heart out while he was sleeping. He said he managed to escape and lock himself in the bathroom. The dispatcher then went on to ask him a series of questions trying to figure out what was going on. Every time he tried to answer, the dispatcher heard what sounded like a loud banging and scratching on the bathroom door. He then whispered, "There is a demon in my sister's body. I have been battling it for days. It escaped the chains." What happened next haunted the dispatcher for life. She had an unearthly, deep, demonic voice begin to start shouting at the man on the phone. She continued to growl and speak in a strange language until the police broke in. When they broke in, she let out a terrifying scream. The phone then hung up. After the dispatcher finished her shift, she asked her commanding officer what happened at the home, as she was curious, and he told her that the police found the woman with chains attached to bloody handcuffs around her wrists. She was covered in self-inflicted scratches, and one of her eyes was bright red due to a popped blood vessel. Also, her clothes were shredded and she looked pale. The officer said she looked like she was drained of her blood. All of these stories are real life events that happened to actual police officers. If you want to read them for yourself, check out the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated with our new videos, and why not check out our other videos. Goodbye.